You mentioned that our relationship wasn't necessarily a friendship. And that kind of like bugged me a little bit because I guess I thought it was. And so you mentioned, okay, we're at coworker stage and maybe now we moved up to colleague or vice versa. You said something like that way. And I don't know, it felt a little like very sterile to me, I guess.
Hi, I'm Ellen.
Hi, I'm Ely, and this is a podcast with two Asian American women.
Living, learning, and sharing about everyday life cross-generationally.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
So we're keeping it real.
Welcome back. Yes, we're doing this extra segment today just to bring everybody else into our evolving friendship. And we had a conversation, probably just a little bit of backstory. We had a little conversation, I think last week, maybe on the phone or the week before, something like that. Yeah. And so we wanted to maybe just bring everybody in to share a little bit about that conversation. And I'll hand it over to you, Ellen. What happened?
When I first got here, my first question to Ely was, are we okay? Are you mad at me? And go.
I said, we're good. We're good, but maybe it's something we might be able to just chat about openly with everybody and just kind of talk, because things aren't always butterflies and flowers, I guess.
You say that, so we're being real. You said we're good, but I felt friction.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, so
I feel like you said it because you're being nice and accommodating, but I feel as if there's some underlying things that you wanted to say, no, I'm not okay, and blah, blah. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we were also 30 minutes to our host, a special guest coming on too,
right,
so you can't go in too much into detail about
it,
but I'm good for the show. I'm good for
to
kind of get going on this, and so I think that there was that time piece that we can put that aside. I mean, to talk about that, but I think that friendships, or I don't know. So we had that conversation. We had a conversation, I think, a couple weeks ago where I felt a little bit, I guess, hurt, maybe hurt's the word, by something that you mentioned on the show. I think the filtered piece and unfiltered. Oh, I can't be filtered. I have to be filtered.
I have to
with
be filtered.
you, with me. And I guess the me part was like, me? Like, I didn't, I guess for me, I try, and maybe I misunderstood that, and that's what you explained.
I think you're taking it out of the context, I think. Because when you, and when I watched the podcast again too, I was like, where did I offend? Because I was really so taken aback. And
well, we deleted that. I think we edited that piece out.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, because he was barking. He happened to be barking around that time. We had Mr. Cuddles in the background barking. So we ended up editing that piece out. So you didn't hear the other piece, I think. Yeah. But go ahead.
But still, trying to look back and stuff in my head, even now when I say it, it has no ill intent, and it's nothing at all, absolutely nothing to do with you, but to do with me.
Right. No, I get
You see
that.
what I'm saying?
I get
Like,
that now. I think the way you said it though was like, because of you, I have to be filtered though. That's how I interpreted it.
Okay.
You know, but I understand what you're saying, because you're like, well, I feel like I can't be myself around you. Just sit on that for a second. If it were you, maybe.
Now that you say it that way, yes.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, and I hesitate only because I'm like, because now I'm trying to, okay, because I'm always in the how do I make this right mode, right? Troubleshoot. Like Ellen is always in this troubleshoot mode. And so I hesitate when you say that, because now I'm like, so how do I correct that when this is my regular way of speaking, but it was in no way I did not mean to offend. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm like, how do I, because sometimes, and I make up words, and that's one of the things that, my students have told me before, some of my friends, mostly my students, they go, Ellen, that word does not exist in the vocabulary, because I make up little words that to me in my head make sense, right?
Right.
So it's that, I don't know how to, and I guess it's through knowing me more that you'd get to know, again, a lot of it is my personality and all that stuff, but it just really was to me so, I was very taken aback, to the point where, like, I know that when you asked me, I probably just sat there for a while, because to me it was like, it blew my mind. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because all of my MBTI, all of my personalities, everything, all of my strongest suits, I'm a feeler. Like, it's all about emotion and feeling. And my supposed field, according to all of that, career, resource, everything, is to be in the mentorship, advisement, social work type field, counselor, like everybody says I'm supposed to be that. Yeah. And so it just really surprised me that I did that. Yeah. When even my instincts otherwise don't do that naturally. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think, like we talked about, it wasn't necessarily to me, but the way you described it, you kind of went into, and my husband says, just don't worry about Ely. And I'm like, well, what am I, like, I don't understand what I'm doing. Like, I'm just being myself, and I want these authentic conversations. And so I thought the filtered means filtering your conversations. Yeah.
No, by that, when I said, my husband said, don't worry about Ely, and what he means by that is, because I don't know you, okay, because I don't know you, or I'm getting to know you, I'm getting to know her. Yeah. It's not that I don't know her. Because I'm getting to know you, I don't quite yet know how would Ely react to certain things. Yeah. If I say this, am I going to offend her? If because I honestly only know, right. I mean, and even our conversations, 90% of our conversations is via text. Right. Maybe even 95%. Yeah. I think the longest conversation ever that we had was when we talked about this issue.
No, actually, we've had conversations that are like 2 hours, remember, on the phone before, I don't know if it was before the show started, but we've had long conversations before.
So maybe I don't remember that.
It was a while ago, though.
But then at the same time, and maybe the reason and I'm not dismissing anything, I think that, where it was something other than podcast business. Yeah. Okay, because the podcast business, remember, it's twofold. There's the podcast business, and then there's the evolution of the friendship, friendship evolution. Yes. So there's twofold, and we always talk about business. Everything is business, business, business. And the only real conversations that we've had lengthwise, aside from this is what happened, today kind of thing, has been about your grandma, the food.
Yeah.
That was a long conversation.
Yeah.
And then this issue.
Right.
You know, and everything else was via text. And even, you know, on our last text, I was like, Ely, I think we should have more non-text conversations because, you know, tone, right, is very easily misinterpreted.
Of course. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think in just not just with you, but in anybody, just when we text, it can get misconstrued. It's like, what does that mean? What kind of tone does that have behind it? And we might have a tone that we're thinking, but it might not be what the person is trying to say. But I think, you know, with the conversations and getting to know each other, we have done this on camera mainly because you told me to stop. and so we have stopped. We haven't talked much with our phone calls because you're like, save it for the show. And it there are some great things that come out of that. And I think that we can bring you all in too. I guess that's maybe why we haven't gotten to know each other, because we have gotten to know each other through the podcast. And, you know, in that conversation a couple of weeks ago, since we are continuing to be real with one another and you all too, is you mentioned the piece of like friendship. And friendship's an important piece to me. That word friendship is really important. And to me, maybe everybody views it differently. And you mentioned that the
five. Are you going to say that? No, I'm sorry. Five. Go ahead. Go. Because you went like this.
No. You mentioned that our relationship wasn't necessarily a friendship. And that kind of like bugged me a little bit because I guess I thought it was. And so you mentioned, okay, we're at coworker stage and maybe now we moved up to colleague or vice versa. You said something like that way. And I don't know, it felt a little like very sterile to me, I guess.
So let me explain my thought process. I have three that I would consider are my friends, thick and thin friends. Okay, three of them. Okay.
Only three?
Three. Okay, that I say are when and I don't know if I'm even defining this right. And this is so let me tell you. My husband tells me that and this is from in my prior work experience, I had to really, really filter myself a lot because I was the first face, I was the spokesperson, I was that person that spoke for, you know, in the context that you look at it, the department that I worked in, okay? So I had to be very careful about everything and anything that I said, especially since I also represented a very, very large, pretty much the underrepresented folks, okay? So I worked in that context for almost 20 years, okay, in that role.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, I remember my husband then said, Ellen, you have to be very careful because you are like this. This is what he said. And when you approached me with your concerns, like really and truly it was like this. And by that, he means that remember, I'm a feeler and all emotions. So whatever I feel in my heart automatically comes out of my mouth. You're seeing the me, okay? And I talk about it, I cry, whatever, but it goes straight from the heart out, okay? Meanwhile, in the real world, he's like, you can't, especially in this position that you're in, again, my previous life, right? He's like, it can't go from heart out. It has to go here up to your head and then out. He goes, you have to do this. You can't do this. You have to do this. And I remember him making making those movements, he's like, you have to think of everything that you say first and think about the repercussions, think about the whatever, then say it out. And goes, don't just speak from your heart. So consistently, and with this, where I wanted to do something where it was something natural that spoke from my heart, something that I loved, I don't want it filtered. However, I don't know Ely. I don't know her, okay? So I have the previous history role of how I am. I have to be somewhat filtered in front of a camera out there. And then not knowing you. So with that, and maybe I'm going forward a little bit, again, I have those 3 friends that I say are core. And when I say core, I'm like, the only thing I don't give them is my bank account number. But I probably could, But even with them, it's like, I can't talk to Emma about things I can't talk to her about boys and things. I just can't, because my friendship with Emma, although she's true, godmother of my children, my friendship with her is different from my friendship with Fala, I can talk about everything and anything, everything and anything. Yeah. And then Ashwin, who feels everything in between. Those are my 3 core friends. Everybody else, and with those 3 friends, I honestly do not have to think. I don't have to say anything. They know me, they understand me with silence.
Yeah.
Okay. With everybody else, I think that, again, those 3 friends are a core. Everybody else are kind of a little bit on the outskirts, right? Okay. So some are more strangers, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the strangers. Then there are some that are, work people that you kind of know them through work. And then as you know them more, they become more, but like all of that generalized, contextualized, whatever you want to call it, right? The others, the ones that are not core to me, are somewhere like more acquaintances, and the levels of how deep those friendships are is where it is from the palm of your hand, right? Saying that the palm of my hand or the core friends are in my palm. So everything else, and so a colleague, depending on how close I am with you and how much I chitter-chatter with you and how much we spend time together, how much we know each other, could actually move further up, right? But I can't see any, like even people that I've been with, even my close friends, I can't see them as those 3 cores. So maybe it's just a way of defining them. Yeah. For me.
Okay.
Not necessarily of how the rest of the general world does it, but because I don't know you, I feel that I have to be careful of me saying something or doing something that will offend you.
Yeah.
So it's got nothing at all to do about what I think of you, or if anything, it puts you in a higher position because I think of you enough, even more so than any regular Joe Schmo. I don't give a shit what in the hell that person, thinks of me. Yeah. But I think enough of what you think.
Right.
For me to say, I want to be respectful.
Right.
I want to be careful. Yeah. I don't want to offend you. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think that I'm talking too much. How do you feel with what I'm telling you? Am I making sense?
Yeah. I think everybody's perspective is different. So it's good to hear your perspective on how you define a friendship and how that evolves. I think for me, it's just different, I guess. My perception of friendship is maybe deep meaningful conversations, I guess, and someone you can count on. I haven't really thought it through of what my definition of friendship is, but it's a little less rules per se, maybe as maybe it's just someone that I can count on and someone that has deep, meaningful relationships that I can trust too. So my definition maybe of friendship is different. And so that's where maybe our communication kind of has a little bit of that disconnect, a little bit, because of our definitions of these words. And I get it, because you mentioned too, like your background, you have to be filtered per se and watch what you say in your previous life for 20 years. I mean, that would have an effect on somebody too. And then, you know, with the not knowing me piece, I guess we talked a little bit about it. It was, I guess my thought was like, well, wouldn't you get to know someone by asking questions, right? Instead of, but you mentioned that was, people came to you with things.
Right. So I'm glad you say that, because if you want me to ask questions, I can. Okay. However, for me, right, I'm very open. You know, what is it? Like, I'm always like, as soon as you see me, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I'm just literally throwing up at you, right? To me, that is my way of bringing you in. I'm being open. I'm sharing you all this stuff. I'm talking to you all about this. You know, I'm drawing you in. Because again, and you know, I used to counsel and advise and whatever. I wanted my students to come to me and to be, and a lot of them have, you know, go through everything, you know, race, identity issue, like all of this stuff. And so I want them, I was the type of person that come and sit down. Are you comfortable? Let me feel comfortable. And we'll chit chat and maybe shoot the breeze about whatever, but I don't prod them. I don't want to say, Ely, tell me about you.
Yeah.
Why do I have to do that? Like, I don't, you know, the way that I am is, if I feel comfortable enough with you for me to share deep things about me, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? I'm going to tell you. I don't want to, like, there are some questions that obviously that will come up. Oh, tell me about your grandmother or things like that. But the honest, like, emotional pieces that are hidden in our hearts, I don't want to pull that out of you. I want you to say, I feel comfortable enough with Ellen for me to share it with her. So here it is. Does that make sense?
I can see I can definitely see your perspective on it. I think that, you know, I guess maybe our perspectives are different. Like, for me, a conversation is like, this is just I guess my thoughts on a conversation. And even in kind of the podcast, like, I'll ask you a question and then it's like, oh, what about you? Or what, and you might ask, what about me? Because it's a reciprocal conversation versus maybe one way per se.
Yeah, and I agree. But again, when there's topics.
Yeah.
So when we're caught up in a topic.
Yeah.
Then there's a lot of questions to ask.
Right.
That just comes out naturally,
right?
Because how can you not? I mean, I ask a lot of questions, right? Because I'm a talker. But again, once the topic comes out, the questions come out. But when there's no topic, when it's a sharing, again, the sharing piece is completely different. Okay. When there is no topic, because it's just your everyday life, let's share about the heart.
Yeah.
What the topic is huge.
Right. It is.
You see what I'm saying? So I don't know.
I get your point. I mean, because I think we view that differently too, is where like you're like, well, you should tell me if our friendship is good, or like, you should tell me if you're comfortable with sharing a topic, versus me, I'm like, well, if they're not curious about this topic, why should I talk about it? Like, what you don't care about it, so you're not going to ask about it. That's my thought. It's like, you don't care about that topic, so why ask me about what I did yesterday? You know, like, you don't, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, yeah. And I see where you're at, and I'm getting it, but at the same time, you know, oh, if I don't tell you, again, oh, my daughter had an accident yesterday.
Right.
Okay. If I didn't tell you that,
yeah,
is there a response to that?
Yeah. There's not a question, right? To get that.
You see what I'm saying? So for me, it's like it had to come from deep inside me to share that piece with you. I could have just said, no, you know, this is something that I don't even want her to know about, so I'm not even gonna say.
Right.
You know?
Well, yeah, and I think it probably could have come up in like, hey, how's everything going? Like, how's everything been with you? And it could have come up in that conversation, but
Which
I
is
appreciate,
why
yeah,
I said, are we good? Are you mad at me? Are we good? That was the first thing, because to me, I'm like, you know, I was feeling something.
Yeah.
Again, I'm very much a feeler, so I'm like, things are not going right. Things are not going right. I know she's upset about, you know, I know she's upset, and so I want to know how to make it right.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, if I did, and again, this is where I want you to tell me, what, I know you don't want the rules, but you have the rules. You're very you're very structured in a lot of ways. I mean, at least I see that.
Yeah.
So, I feel that you say that there shouldn't be a rule in friendship, but at the same time, I feel as if there has to, like, I don't want to offend you. So what do I have to be mindful of? I mean, if you want me to ask more questions, I certainly could. Again, I'm trying to be respectful. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess I want to not make you feel uncomfortable with me.
And same with me with you, vice versa too. I mean, I think, you know, I guess I didn't say there aren't any rules with friendships. I said that there's probably less rules with, like, I probably have less rules with a friendship than maybe someone else has, right? But I mean, I think as far as,
I also think that, you know, when you say that now, and because I talk about it, since she said that she has less rules about friendships and stuff, that must mean that you've been very fortunate in life, because she can embrace friendships at kind of face value. I've been hurt so much, and I've gone through so much that for me, trust is an issue, loyalty is an issue.
Right.
There's layers of why I cannot. There's, like, I'm, you know, aside from my previous world, right? Like, there are just layers of friendships that I've gained and lost.
yeah.
And so to me, it's actually wonderful to hear you say that, almost like an innocence, you know, with the way that you're asking that, because I'm like, God, when you said it, I'm like, I wish I was that way. I wish that I was like you, because I can't, you know, it's like you said, Ellen, why do you categorize? And and I agree, I am categorizing them, but it's because I've been there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think when we get hurt, then we put up walls. I think for me, I put up so many walls for most of my life. And even when I was working in corporate world, I would only talk about work. I wouldn't bring my entire life into it. And I realized that was actually disconnecting me to people, right? Because I looked at, like, how come this person is so people find them so interesting. And so I guess I looked at that, and one of the big pieces was they are open. They ask questions. They share about their worlds, and I think that authentic conversation connects people. And so I've learned, I'm not perfect, but I've learned to be more open and ask questions and be curious about somebody, where it's like, oh, this is so interesting. This is how we form a friendship, right? Is we understand about each other. Can we agree to disagree too, and still be friends or colleagues? She might consider me a colleague right now, or a coworker. I can't remember. And I've had friends too, like really close friends. We're very close now, but I've had friends where we invited them over here and had a happy hour, and they said, well, you're kind of like a neutral. And I'm like, interesting. Ow, that kind of hurts a little bit to be considered a neutral state. But
why did they elaborate on why a neutral? What was their definition of the neutral?
They haven't quite made that decision where you're a friend or not. They're still trying to find out. That was that's their perception of it, and which is okay.
But you see what I'm saying? It's like, with Ely, seriously, it's not in any. It is not negative in any way. And I'm trying to think of your aura, your character is a very, like, you're hard to read. Like, you're just really, really hard to read.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's just hard to read. And for me, that is such an open book. My mind is consistently going, what is she feeling? What is she, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what I've noticed even in this podcast is you're okay with silence.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with silence.
Right.
I'm only okay, like, even with my husband, I'm not okay with silence because I'm always like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? What are you thinking? So to me, it's like, I'm consistently in this big question mark mode with, am I saying things right? Am I, right. And that's what I mean by the filter. Like, right. It's always a question mark, as opposed to, if you already know someone, or if you're already very comfortable with someone, then it doesn't matter what the heck I'm going to say because they're going to get it.
Right.
Okay. Well, there's no way that in 3 months, and even less than 3 months, that we could really know each other fully, because outside of taping, there was only one time, twice, if you count the alumni event, that we really spent time. And even when we went to the, what do you call it? The event, the Asian American event that, that you were in charge of, like, I didn't really get to spend time with you. I spent more time with really the people in my my table, you know. Yeah. So, and that, I guess that's what I was hoping to say, is that friendship develops outside of the podcast, because but not that we haven't given it there just hasn't been much opportunity, because it's been kind of busy.
Yeah.
Because we really only came out, even though we started meeting or texting and talking whatever during the holidays, January, we went live in May. And then since going live in May, what time have we really had?
Right. But then that's the thing, like, do you want to talk about things outside of the podcast? Because that was the other challenge, was you're like, save it for the podcast. Let's do minimal talking. So then my perception is like, well, then, yeah, I mean, could we potentially build a friendship from the podcast? I don't know. I mean,
yeah, and I don't know. But we can spend time with each other and get to know each other, because it's not all, daily, everyday life is Asian American thing that could be in a podcast. Yes, I agree. But at the same time, like, off the air, we do chit chat, but then when it starts to get too deep, then that's when we say that. Then that's when I say, "Oh, this would be good podcast material."
Yeah.
But it's not to say that we don't have conversations outside. It's just we haven't really had much opportunity.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. I mean, do you want to talk outside the podcast then, or are you okay with kind of doing it here and building our friendship here, or do you think that you can't build a friendship just by the podcast?
I'm definitely okay, because not everything, when it comes to family, when it comes to that, I would hope. I mean, we do talk somewhat, but I don't share everything that's private. I just don't.
Right.
Not on air.
Yeah.
But that's something that I don't mind sharing with you. And we've talked about some things. I mean, we've, prior to taping, we say, okay, let's not mention this, let's not mention that.
Right.
I mean, we're very, conscious of, what we can say off and on the air. So I think that we can. I mean, we definitely can. And then when we hit upon topics that could be in the podcast, and that's when we can put a slight pause and say, okay, let's continue this podcast. But by no means it doesn't mean that we can't have a relationship, outside of it.
Yeah.
Because there's the podcast piece, and then there's also the friendship piece, right?
Yeah.
So
okay. One of the things I like about Ellen is that she's very open to feedback, but I hope you don't think too much into it, because where it like drives you crazy too.
No, well, again, I'm a designer, went to school, architecture school, and everything is about critique. So to me, and I mentioned that before, there is no negative feedback. There's no negative critique, right? There's always a learning. But I'm a feeler. So when I offend somebody, like I sit there. I mean, I sit there and it stews over me, and the devil in me comes out because I'm, or the darkness anyways, not the devil, but the darkness comes out because I'm like, I really don't know where I offended, or I really don't, and I sit there and I try to go, where, how do I not do this? And to me, that is where it does become paralyzing, because then I'm even more, when I'm trying to break the filter, but then I feel now like, well, the more that there is a filter.
No, I get it. No, it makes sense. But I think I feel like being authentic to who you are, and me being, of course, authentic to who I am, and being able to say if something kind of like, hey, that kind of bugged me a little bit, because I guess I'd rather that than not say anything at all too, like vice versa, right? And because that's not how we want, like, that's not how we grow.
Right.
And you're really open to that feedback, and I appreciate that. That's a really great quality that you have, is you're really open, like, hey, what happened there? I didn't even think about that, and it wasn't my intention of doing that. But I guess also like that introspection, well, how could that have been perceived as, potentially, oh yeah, I do see how that, like, you even do that too, which is something that I admire about you. And
well, thank you. I do think about it, and you will know if I'm mad. Like, you will know if something's bothering me, you will know. And because there's so many things on my bucket list, and because I'm so conscious and aware of the things that I want to do, and goals that I want to accomplish, I'm very, I'm just very I'm careful. I'm careful of offending, because I don't want, I'm going, my life now is all about taking the toxicity and the darkness and all of that bad stuff from, and my,
in the past,
my Las Margaritas screw, you know who you are, because we talk about this, forgetting about all of that and saying, okay, now this new life, where I am at now is all about goodness and, brightness and no negative. And I'm striving so much for that.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
Just tell me.
Yeah.
But.
And I do.
Yeah. And again, know that I am, it was like this for the longest time, for 20 years. Now I'm trying to get it back to this, okay? And you're meeting me in that time frame. You're meeting me in that time frame where it's I'm adjusting.
Yeah.
I'm still adjusting.
Right.
Right. So just kind of, I guess, this conversation will help, hopefully, and each other, we're aware.
For sure.
But just know that for me, since I don't know you well, silence is uncomfortable.
Okay.
Because I don't know you. I'm not saying that silence is not comfortable. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, but where our friendship is right now, silence is to me, because I'm grasping, like, what's the next step? What is she feeling?
Yeah.
So kind of meet me a little bit. I know that I'm way out there. I get that. I understand that. But I try to remember, I told you when I come here, I actually change music now. I was, because coming here, I'm like EDM, like pump it up, so that,
I want
when
you
I
to
get,
be, yeah.
But now, and I listen to all of that, but when I'm getting off the exit to come here, I put something more like relax to kind of bring me down a little bit, bring me down a notch.
I mean, I feel like you don't have to do that though, but if whatever makes you feel comfortable is good with me. But I mean, I think just coming as yourself, your authentic self, and knowing that we might see things differently, and that's how things evolve, right? Relationships evolve. Is you don't have to see eye to eye on every single minute of every single day. And speaking of structure, we're getting to that long point, but we'll wrap it up. But thank you for just being open with me, and as always,
thank you for your trying to understand me anyways.
Yeah, and I can do
and for being open, telling me what's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So you too. I know you won't hesitate to do that. If you know Ellen, I'm sure you know her by now. She won't hesitate to tell me if I bug her in some way. But thank you for joining us too. And feel free to share any comments about any sort of experiences that you've had with maybe friendships, relationships, where maybe you didn't see eye to eye, but you found a way to talk through it. And you don't have to always just either like stop talking to that person or
forget about it, because silence is not very helpful when it comes to trying to build something, right? So
yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Bye.